Good morning, viewers, and welcome back. We're just at about 7:11 a.m. this morning. Welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Yes, viewers, as we head on into our first interview segment this morning, there's been much talk in and around Tobago, and in fact Trinidad and Tobago, regarding the issue of no chief administrator in the Tobago House of Assembly. And the plot thickened into the weekend as word also came out that within the Tobago space, the CAS, Central Administrative Services Tobago, that we had a suspended permanent secretary, creating some administrative challenges at that very level. To give us some insight into this and other matters here within the Tobago House of Assembly, we have on set with us a Deputy Chief Secretary, Assemblyman Dr. Faith B.Yisrael. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Julien. Thank you for having me.
All right. So as we get the conversation started this morning, it is no secret we saw the launch that took place in terms of the sod turning for the water park that is carded to be set up here in the Tobago space in the Friendship area. And more than that, within your remarks, you would have made reference to something that apparently turned all attention away from the water park and put the Deputy Chief Secretary into focus. So we want to start off by getting some clarity in relation to the statements that would have been made last week.
Certainly. So, yes, it was late Thursday evening that the Chief Secretary called me and asked me to sit in on that program for him because he actually had to run off and do several things to try to prevent chaos from continuing to ensue in the Tobago space. I did highlight that we actually have not had a Chief Administrator for almost a month. Today is, the 11th, 12th? We are getting very, very close to a month that we have not had a Chief Administrator at the Tobago House of Assembly. And this is something that needs to be highlighted, and it is something that is really a cause for concern. Because if you would recognize the Chief Administrator, according to the Tobago House of Assembly Act, is the most senior accounting officer in the Tobago House of Assembly. The other administrators, in essence, who are accounting officers in each division, report to the Chief Administrator. The Chief Administrator is also responsible for whenever there are firearm users license requests happening, whether there are HR issues that need to be done above a certain range, whether there are other, significant other issues that happen within the Tobago space, requires the signature of the Chief Administrator. For example, when we have people who are trying to develop their lands and so forth, and they need to go through town and country and public health and all of that, the Chief Administrator is the one who finally signs off on all of those things. So we have a situation now where for almost a month, we have not had a Chief Administrator in the Tobago House of Assembly, and we are wondering if this is also part of the larger, what seems to be a larger plot almost to destabilize this current Tobago House of Assembly.
And I want us to get a little more in depth into the issue, and I'm very happy you mentioned in terms of that broader concern. Where, as far as your understanding, does the responsibility fall? We've heard persons indicating that it's the fault of the THA. No, it's the fault of central government. Some say no, it's the fault of the Public Service Commission. From where you sit in terms of the process, or what's your understanding, and potentially what is the keepback at this point?
So we are very unclear on what the keepback is, and what we are asking Tobagonians is to really think through. So let me explain what is supposed to happen, and let me also explain what has happened. According to Section 71, if I'm not mistaken, of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, the Prime Minister of the government of Trinidad and Tobago is supposed to advise, in essence, the Public Service Commission that a chief administrator needs to be appointed to the Tobago House of Assembly. The critical part, though, is that advice to the Public Service Commission must come after consultation with the Chief Secretary. And that is a normal thing. This is not a new thing. That is what has happened in the Tobago space for as far back as we've had a Tobago House of Assembly where we've had a Chief Administrator. So we're talking about several years. So let me explain what has actually happened. As far as I am aware, the former chief administrator, her last day of duty was the 17th of last month. The 17th of last month, that was what was that, May. As required, she actually wrote to the Service Commission indicating, as in a month before that, indicating, hey guys, remember I am going off in a month. I must go off in a month because I have come to the age where I am retired, so I legally cannot function beyond this day. So that happened. That letter was sent from the chief administrator on the 17th of April to the PS, to the prime minister. And I'm looking at my phone because I want to make sure I get the dates correctly so that we don't misrepresent anything. On the 15th of May, which is in essence 2 days before the former chief administrator left, the chief secretary wrote to the prime minister saying, hey, you know, the last time we had a kind of thing with this, Miss John is going to be gone in 2 days. Remember, this is the process that we should be following. Let's have the conversation kind of thing. On that correspondence was sent and silence. On the 22nd of May, at about 5 p.m., after back and forth, the chief secretary and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago actually met at his residence in Tobago to speak about this and other matters. So the Chief Secretary, you know, the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister are supposed to be meeting continually. They met on the 22nd of May, which is after the Chief Admin had left. But, you know, they sat, they had very cordial discussions, and there was an agreement at that point. Yes, the Prime Minister agreed, yes, I simply need to write to my permanent secretary, letting her know that she needs to write to the Service Commission, or he needs to write to the Service Commission, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, and have this situation dealt with. Again, on the 29th of May, the Chief Secretary communicated with the Prime Minister saying, hey, remember we had this conversation a couple days ago. We are still without a Chief Administrator. What is going on? And at that point, the Prime Minister gave the commitment that he would actually do what is necessary, and to do that on the 31st of May, because the day after that, the 30th, was a holiday. So we are now to the end of May. On Tuesday, the 5th of June, the Chief Secretary again communicated with the Prime Minister on the matter. And finally, on Friday, one of the things that he was actually working on was actually having a pre-action protocol letter sent to the Public Service Commission indicating, okay, this has gone too far now. We now have a dire situation on our hands. It is now your responsibility to ensure that Tobago's highest accounting officer is appointed. So that is what has happened. The Chief Secretary, at every point that is normal, has indicated to the Prime Minister on multiple occasions that this is what needs to happen. We got commitment that this is what would happen, but we are here again this morning. Maybe, you know, I am hoping that after this morning's interview at 8 a.m., I come off of this interview and we recognize that, yes, a chief administrator has been appointed and everything is fine. But as of yesterday, that had not happened.
So we saw where, and you know, this naturally leads into an announcement where it is due by the Prime Minister holding his press briefing. It's scheduled to take place this morning. Do you anticipate the Tobago House of Assembly and this to be one of the matters in focus?
Well, you know, I honestly hope that the Prime Minister does not use something that is a simple thing, that is an appointment of a public servant to an office that is duly theirs, to make this into a media event. This is something that literally requires a sentence that says, Mr. or Mr. P.S., the Tobago House of Assembly is without a chief administrator. Please speak to Public Service Commission to ensure that there's a chief administrator appointed. I don't know that a press briefing is required for something like this. And I certainly hope that the Prime Minister is not planning to use this opportunity to go down a road that is unnecessary. It is unnecessary.
All right. So, folks, we await to hear what the outcome will be. All right. We pause for a moment to take a break. We will be back with Dr. Faith B.Yisrael as we continue the conversation this morning. But we want to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. As we continue the conversation this morning with Dr. Faith B.Yisrael, Deputy Chief Secretary, joining us here on set. We were just about wrapping on the issue of no chief administrator. Tell us as well as similarly, so you're saying, just to be very clear, the exclusive role of the Tobago House of Assembly in this process is by way of the Chief Secretary consulting with the Prime Minister, which took place in May.
Certainly. So there are two things that should have happened. The former chief administrator was to write to say, hey, I am coming to the age of retirement. I am leaving shortly. And that happened in April. And yes, the chief secretary is to consult with the Prime Minister. And that happened in May. Yes.
All right. Tell us about the further development that we're now hearing of, if you have any information on it as well, regarding what is now the public service suspension of the permanent secretary for the Central Administrative Services Tobago, which is also an area under the Office of the Prime Minister, but operating out of Tobago.
So I have very little information about that. I have heard comments bantered about. I would say, though, that I am of the opinion that this may actually be related to the audit that is happening. Because one of the things that's important to note is that the audit that happened in the Tobago House of Assembly, that's been happening since we've been here. This is the longest audit ever, Julien. It has been happening. One of our responsibilities coming out of that is to actually have the chief administrator be notified of the issues that came up in the audit. And when that happened, according to law, the former chief administrator did submit what is considered evidence or allegations or whatever coming out of that audit to the Public Service Commission. So it is possible that the suspension that has happened, that has been bandied around, is as a result of that happening. But again, the former chief administrator is the one who saw what was coming out of the audit and did what was legally required of her, which was to present this information to this Public Service Commission, which I understand she did.
All right. We want to also get just some quick information as we go forward. One of the other areas of concern that has been raised is the issue with regards to non-payment of workers. Various categories quoted in terms of the divisions, and so in some instances through infrastructure, in some instances references being made to workers through the community development program and so on. Some of the programs of the various divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly. What's the situation with regards to that issue? Some time ago, we would have had conversations with the Secretary's responsibility for food production and issues regarding the development vote and that kind of thing, where they are being paid out of when it should be recurrent. How have these issues, how much closer are we to, in terms of a resolution that allows for persons? Because at the end of the day, the administrative process is one thing. People just want to know that they can get their monies, on time.
And this current administration of the Tobago House of Assembly has actually been trying to work magic. We have been trying, in essence, to plant a money tree somewhere. Because as you know, we have this thing that happens every fiscal year. The amount of monies that is required by the Tobago House of Assembly is definitely never what is granted. And I'm talking about what is granted according to law, according to the Dispute Resolution Commission, which says that we should be getting between 4 4.03 and 6.9% of the budget. And we are all aware we are always closer to the 4.03. They say it is 4.3, but the additional to get it up to 0.3 is what is actually allocated to ministries in Trinidad for work that they claim is done in Tobago. I would like to see which work is done in Tobago, but this is a continual thing. It's important to note, though, that yes, we do have issues with late payment because we are literally trying to find monies and trying to wire, via and transfer monies and so forth to ensure that we have payments. But what I think needs to be said is that we need to be a little bit more responsible with how we present this information to the public and how we report this information to the public. So, for example, I saw a report yesterday about hundreds of workers not getting paid. And yesterday, while it is Sunday, while the public servants and so forth are supposed to be off, I am there messaging some of them in these programs, and they're telling me, Dr. Faith, that is just not true. I am working in accounts. I am working in check staff. What we have, for example, with the situation with the workers who are 10 on, 10 off, we have two groups of them because, of course, it's, the first set is 10 on, and then when they are off, another set comes in as another 10 days kind of thing. And what they recognize is a lot of the workers who are having issues with late payment are the workers who do not have bank accounts. So, for example, this is a rough estimate because I could not ask the young lady to leave her house to go to work last night to confirm for me. But, for example, one of the teams has about 150 individuals, and this person is estimating that about 130, 140 of those have bank accounts, so their payments go directly into their bank accounts. But it's the other people who do not have bank accounts where we have to now go and cut checks. Or if, for example, you have a bank account, but it is not with First Citizen. So, First Citizens is the bank of the THA. So if you bank with First Citizens, you get your money first. If you bank with other banks, it takes a little while. If you were in a credit union, apparently that takes a long time as well. And because this is actually one of the first payments that the workers are getting, they are still going through those teething issues. So yes, there are workers who have not gotten paid. And we've actually said to the workers, contact me even. Let me know your name, your number, your address, what department you're working in to try to figure out how to get you paid. But by no means is the report of hundreds of people not being paid. That is absolutely not true. And I would really like us to be a little bit more responsible in how we report some of these issues.
So how soon do you anticipate, based on the information that you have at hand, that this is going to be resolved, at least for the benefit of those who are tuned in and expressing the concerns with late payment?
So those who have not gotten their payment yet, it's really because the payments are in process, at least for that program. You spoke about the agricultural, the development workers in agri, and that is literally every month. The secretary and the administrator and her accounting officers are literally going through the vote books every month saying, okay, this is how much we have to pay. Let us see if we could pull a 20,000 from here, pull a 30,000 from here, pull a this from here, pull a that from here to get these workers paid. So it is a process that is a tedious process. But you know what would actually prevent this process from having to happen every single month or every single fortnight is if Tobago was actually allocated the amount of resources that we say that we absolutely need, and which is closer to the 6.9% of the budget, we would not have to deal with these issues, but it's because we are always allocated the absolute bare minimum. We now have to make magic with what we have.
All right. And before we close this morning as well, Dr. Feet, Deputy Chief, there has been the talk in and around in relation to, we are only now seeing the Deputy Chief Secretary, what has suddenly happened with regards to the Chief since, of course, the audio recording coming out in terms of voices appearing to be that of top high THA officials. What's your response to that matter as Deputy Chief Secretary?
Well, the entire executive has been busy running the island of Tobago. I will say one thing, that I think all of this as part of has been part of a process to try to distract us, to prevent us from doing the work of the people. And that is what we have been very busy doing. The Chief Secretary indicated, I think it was some time ago, to a reporter that he will speak on this issue, and the executive has agreed that we will wait for him to speak on this issue, and that will happen very soon. So don't worry, Tobago. The executive, we are here. The reason we've actually been silent is because, you know what? We're busy minding Tobago business. We are busy dealing with all of these things. We are busy treating with the fact that we have no chief administrator throughout the last month or so, and all of the things that are coming as a result of that. But don't worry, we are busy minding Tobago's business, and that's why you all hired us.
All right. Thank you very much there, Dr. Feet. One other quick question that I have coming in, seeking quick clarity. The rule of the Tobago House of Assembly, it was clearly defined with regards to the chief administrator process, only consultation with the chief. Is there any direct rule? Because some are alluding to the fact that the THA is involved with the suspension and the issue with the permanent secretary and all of that. Is there any direct rule according to law in relation to the involvement of the THA as it relates to the permanent secretary matter at CAS in Tobago?
So we have to remember that within the Tobago House of Assembly and the public service of Trinidad and Tobago, there are individuals who move through the ranks in Tobago. So you're an accounting officer, you're an AE this, you go up to be an administrator and so forth. And after you've passed the position of administrator in Tobago, the only other option is to go, if you are elevated, is to become a deputy chief secretary, a deputy permanent secretary, a deputy permanent secretary in a ministry in the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And then if you are elevated again, a permanent secretary in a ministry. So we have to look at the individual who they are speaking about to see whether that transition has happened and whether it was because of probably actions within the Tobago House of Assembly when that individual was in a high position in the Tobago House of Assembly that we need to be concerned about. Other than that, the Tobago House of Assembly does not have any role in what happens with permanent secretaries. However, as remember I mentioned before, that when this audit came out and the reports that's been coming out of the audit, the then chief administrator did see issues that she thought needed to be reported, but not what she thought, what she is required by law to report, and that was reported to the Public Service Commission, and that may be what has resulted in this particular person being suspended.
All right. Thank you very much there. We've heard it from Dr. Faith B.Yisrael, Deputy Chief Secretary within the Tobago House of Assembly, seeking to bring some clarity on a few areas here within Tobago. All right. Yes, viewers, I know we wish we had much more time in terms of the list of questions are indeed very long, but we want to thank Dr. Faith B.Yisrael for joining us here on set this morning. And yes, my director is shouting in my ears that time is out for us to continue this morning. So folks, we want to thank you so much. We have coming up next Tamika Seals Manzano, Crop Production Manager, and Vaughn Edwards, Technical Advisor, both of the Department of Agriculture. So we look forward to those upcoming discussions as we speak to initiatives and efforts coming out of agriculture here within the division, within the Tobago House of Assembly. Viewers, we thank you so much for your continued love and support and for choosing the Tobago Updates morning show. And we wish to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.